It is Friday, and Wall Street is craving tacos tonight, or at least more of Trump always chickens out. Because while the president was doubling down on his July 9th trade deal deadline, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was teasing a Labor Day extension, although Canada should not expect one. Canada, our closest friend, our closest ally, our neighbor up north. The president ended trade talks with our neighbors over a tax on U.S. tech companies and said that a new tariff on Canada would be announced within the next week. On that news, the stock market turned negative, but ultimately rebounded, closing at a record high. The nightcap is still here. Heidi, let's start with Canada. Which Trump are they supposed to believe here? Will he actually come up with a new tariff rate for them when he's basically kicked every other deadline down the road?
Yeah, I think that their new prime minister, Carney, he's got his number. He knows he's not reliable. He says, let's just try and deal with European nations. Let's deal across the world. Then not cut the United States out, because that would be extraordinarily difficult, but to just not rely on the United States. And I think, a billionaire recently said it, that we are a brand, the United States, the predictability of the United States, the friendship of the United States. And he basically erodes away that goodwill every day. But I don't think this is unexpected in Canada. I think they've seen this before, and I think they're going to do their own little workaround. And at the end of the day, you know and I know that if you take energy out, we have a positive trade relationship with Canada. And if you put services in, we're winning with Canada, but the president will never acknowledge that.
Do you think it's personal for President Trump and Canada? Because Mark Carney is so well liked by the business community, because he is Harvard educated. He's all the things that President Trump isn't. And when they met at the White House, Mark Carney was playing no games, didn't bend the knee. And when the president said, maybe we'll make Canada another state, he said, no, we absolutely will never do that. So do you think the president is trying to stick it to him? Heidi?
Well, I think absolutely he is. If you go back and you take, Stephanie, if you look at why Carney got elected, because the Liberals were basically going to be obliterated in this election. Carney got elected because Trump put Canadian sovereignty on the ballot, and Carney cannot politically risk, blinking as it relates to Donald Trump. And so Carney was created by Donald Trump, and now he's his worst nightmare, because he's got the chops, the economic chops, to actually do what he says he's going to do, which is divest in a big way away from the United States.
The U.S. does a lot of business with Canada. You and I have talked about the impact the trade war has on farmers in your state. How does this development with Canada fit into this?
Well, I think we should point out that one of the biggest imports into Iowa and North Dakota is natural gas that's used to make fertilizer, anhydrous ammonia, nitrogen. And you need nitrogen to grow wheat or corn. And so corn costs are going to go up, which means beef costs are going to go up, and pork and chickens and eggs are going to go up if you can't get nitrogen. And if we can't get corn grown, we rely on Canada for a huge percentage of our potash, which is also a vital fertilizer component. And I'm not sure if it's Tuesday, if it's Wednesday, if it's Thursday, what the status of natural gas and potash are. At one time, we got an exemption for potash, but I'm not sure if that still exists as of today. And
it changes
my real
every other
concern,
day.
Yeah, it changes every day. And so farmers, just like everybody else, would like some certainty. Markets are sliding sideways. Ag markets, commodity markets. Corn and beans were up today. Maybe they're down tomorrow based on this news that he's getting into another fight with Canada. I haven't checked in the last couple hours. But it's just a roller coaster ride. And we've already lost our soybean market with China to Brazil. That was in the last trade war that he started. And so everybody's just holding on to their jockstrap, wondering what's next.
John, do you think there's any chance the president just finds a way to walk away from all this, right? He's now announced a trade deal with China. But the trade deal he announced is basically an agreement of the framework that was discussed in Geneva back in May. So all this back and forth, nothing's even changed over the last 2 months. We're not talking about any real developments. Is there any chance Trump says this didn't work and moved on? Because people are certainly looking at other things at this point.
Well, one thing I can assure you, Stephanie, is he will never say the words, "this didn't work," or "I was wrong." Whatever he does, he will declare victory, and whether it can be put on paper or not, he will say that he won. There has been enough criticism, just like I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an economist, Stephanie, you know more about this stuff than I do, but no one who knows anything about this thinks that the tariffs are a good idea in the first place. I can tell you, Art talks about the business that Iowa does with Canada. You know, Canada makes up about 30% of the international visitors to Las Vegas, to Nevada, and now those numbers are going down. We just had the figures come out. The gaming revenue here is down. Passengers through the airport here are down. This is having an effect here in Nevada, and you know better than anybody, Stephanie, we're a one-trick pony. This is going to end up hurting the economy, and in 2026, Governor Joe Lombardo, who is a Republican who has tried to thread the needle on Trump, is up for re-election, and he's going to have to deal with that when he runs.